What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered Conversations. And tonight we have a very special guest with us tonight. I would like to introduce everybody to MJ Henion, or otherwise known as Major Pauline Cushman. MJ, I'm going to give you the floor to start us out tonight, to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and we will get into the fun, unfiltered conversations subsequently after. But the floor is yours.
Oh, you just made a very big mistake, sir. Very big mistake indeed.
Uh-oh.
Giving me the floor. Well, but no, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
I am a Civil War living historian. One of many things I'm involved with the history, and I portray Major Pauline Cushman, Union spy. I've been doing so. This will be my 5th year doing it. I am a part of a living history group called the Confederation of Union Generals. I also admin a lot of Facebook groups. I also have a page for Cushman and her history. I also run a page because I'm actually working on 2 book projects, one on Pauline. And then also, yes, the last book about her came out about 20 years ago, and there's been a lot of newer research. And I think that more of her story needs to be told. And I'm also working on one for a favorite general of mine, which it's not Oliver Otis Howard, you 11-4 folks.
You mean to tell me you don't like Howard?
No, I'll tell you right now. First of all, if Oliver Otis Howard done met the good Major Cushman, he wouldn't be a Christian general, is all I'm saying. However, actually, I do like Howard. There is so much myth with the whole Howard Hancock. They didn't have a cage match on Cemetery Hill or anything. And I'm actually working on a book project for him. My mentor in living history, who unfortunately passed a couple of years ago, he had just kind of started the research aspect of it.
So you're continuing on with that.
And I talked with his wife, who's a friend of mine. They were able to, thank God their son is tech savvy. They were able to get what he had started off, gave it to me, and I'm going to finish it. Hopefully we'll get it published. And I'm going to do a dedication to him. But I'm a big fan of Winfield Scott Hancock, and it's going to be mostly on his wounding at Gettysburg and the aftermath of that. It's something that really isn't, it's kind of grazed over a little bit, but it was something that he wanted to do, and I'm going to finish it for him. Hopefully we'll get it published one day. But I'm working on those 2 right now. Yeah, that's what I do. And,
cool. Looks like our friends over at Civil War Breakfast Club popped in too to say the 11th Corps is here. # Team O.
Oh my goodness. Well, those people are so misguided. So misguided. I hear they're also Patriots and Red Sox fans, so I don't know about that, y'all. No, I do a lot, I guess, and I also work a full-time job. I work in the medical field. But the Civil War is the rest of my life, and I'm very blessed and honored that I get to portray the good Major Pauline Cushman. I started it. I wanted to get into living history, and I didn't want to portray, I'm not saying a typical female, but the females of the times, many of them are nurses, authors, things like that. And I didn't want to portray that aspect. And my friend Randy, who is my mentor who passed, he portrayed General Hancock in the Confederation Union Generals, and he wanted me to get involved too. So he said, well, let's see if, and it was almost at the same time we thought of Pauline Cushman. Her name popped into our heads. And he said, well, she did a whole military thing. And I said, good, because I don't want to be dealing with no hoop skirts and corsets. Y'all know what I'm saying? So she actually wore a uniform, did a lot of lecturing about her espionage and her service. So we have a saying in my living history group, and I share it with many others, that we feel that the persona picks the person to portray them. And I really feel that's true, because our personalities are so similar, and I can come in and out of persona so easy. And it was just something where Randy and I just at the same time almost on a phone conversation. And then, he says, "Oh my God, you are so her." He goes, "You're stubborn. You don't want to listen to anybody." She was a very independent woman, way ahead of her time.
Mhm.
And I said, "Wow." I said, and the more I started researching her, she really helped me in my personal life too. I was in an abusive marriage, and
Sorry to
actually,
hear
it'll be
that.
4 years ago tomorrow is my freedom day that I left him. Who's
Happy
up?
to hear that. I will drink some Old Busthead to
I
that for you.
know,
Absolutely.
a new chapter.
And I get a hello nerds from Darren Weeks. Darren, it is always good to see you here, man. Thanks for popping in today.
Oh, why, hello, Darren.
Readout Productions is responding to Braceface Jerry saying, "I am very nervous about Waco the aftermath." Yeah, I am too. We'll see how that goes. We have Civil War Breakfast Club coming in and also saying hi AQ to Andrea Quinn, who also gave Francis Channing Barlow some love. We have Anthony's a big Barlow guy too, so I hear a lot about Barlow. Let me tell you. Civil War
Oh, yes.
Chronicles is in here too, listening in. Thank you for joining us tonight. And the last comment we have is Jerry saying that Readout Productions, me too. He's not very looking. I guess he's nervous for the Waco aftermath too. MJ, quick little backstory. I've studied that a little bit, and yesterday was actually the 30th anniversary of the ATF raid on Waco, which was
I remember that.
part. See, I don't want to date myself here, but
I did.
yeah, 2 years before I was even existing. So, but I
Yeah.
didn't get to I probably thankfully didn't get to witness that, but I was interested just kind of on that. So not to get sidetracked there, but
No,
there
I
was
know.
that
Yeah,
conversation going
but
on.
that's the thing, and that's what I'm glad you kind of brought it up because we always are living history. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, like I said, that was something from when I was, well, let's see, it was what, 30 years ago. So I was 20. And I remember the television coverage and things like that. I mean, we lived through 9/11. We're always living history. And then
We
I
are,
always wonder, how are people going 150 years from now going to talk about the times we lived? I mean, and I think
especially
it's,
with the pandemic. Like,
oh
oh
God.
man, that's a
And
huge.
I work in healthcare. I've been on the front line since day one. Okay. So they
I
need
feel
Melissa
you.
McCarthy to play me or something because
I know I hear that because like, with speaking of work trauma,
yeah,
like, I was working in the Capitol building on January 6th, so
yeah,
I
I
understand.
remember that.
Oh, that was crazy.
It
That was
was,
crazy.
and
Yes, it
you just
was.
watch these things, and you're always living it.
That's a weird juxtaposition because you're a living historian too. You know, you go out and you actually spend the great time doing this thing for our history. But when we say living history, you're meaning it in two different ways too. Not only are you
Yeah,
portraying people from the past, but we are always living in history. Everything that happens as we're sitting here witnessing it and experiencing it. You give it a year, you give it 2 years, you're talking about history. This is something that we get to live. And you're right. What are they going to think 150 years later about us?
I really don't know, and that brings me to, what do the people we talk about as Civil War historians? What do did these people? Did Pauline Cushman ever sit around and say, "I wonder if somebody's going to portray me 160 some years from now"? You know what I'm saying?
I have a
Or
feeling
like,
she knew she was an interesting person.
she was quite an interesting person. Well, and to go to back, she was in an abusive third marriage, and
Mm.
she left her husband, just walked away. He was the sheriff of Pinal County
And where's
out in
Pinal County
Arizona,
at? Arizona?
near Florence, Arizona.
Okay.
Um, and for her to do that, and that's why I kind of took from that inspiration and said, if this woman can do it back in the 19th century, I sure as hell can do it now. So she
Absolutely.
inspired on me, and just doing the living history. It was I got into it in a dark period of my life, but I started a new chapter, and I feel that I've been brought to where I needed to be, that I had to go through all of this stuff to get me on this path. And I consider it an honor to be able to tell her story, and an honor to study this history and to share it with people.
Mhm.
I consider it a responsibility I took on, and I'm going to do it the best I can for as long as I can.
Fantastic. We have David Maxwell saying Major Gwyn in the house.
Ah, yes, Major Gwyn.
And readouts also, but that's enough about 20th century history. Let's get to 19th century history. Pauline Cushman, never heard of her until today. Shall
Oh my
be
goodness.
interesting.
Oh
Okay,
my
well,
goodness.
readout, be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. MJ,
Hmm.
that's your department there.
Well, uh, I was born on June 10th, 1833, in New Orleans, Louisiana. One of many children, I had 7 brothers. Imagine having 7 brothers, y'all. Okay. My father was Spanish. My mother was French. He actually fought in. I had some relatives that fought with Napoleon.
Really?
Yes, indeed. Um, so we were born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and when I was about 10 years old, they moved us to Grand Rapids, Michigan. My father wanted to open up a trading post with some local settlers, as well as the Chippewa tribe, which I befriended a lot of the Chippewa tribe.
Okay.
And I had a grand old time because now with 7 brothers and then hanging out with the boys of the Chippewa, I was hunting, I was fishing. They taught me how to use a bow and arrow. They taught me how to use a gun. Maybe that's why they don't trust me with weapons now. But and then my mother was not very one to be domestic, so I actually learned a lot of cooking and things like that from the elders of the tribe. And I actually have a name with them, Laughing Breeze, because I had quite the sense of humor and I was stubborn. Can you imagine the good Major Cushman being stubborn?
Not in the slightest,
I
no.
learned how to ride a horse and not side saddle, mind you, boys. So many of these things that I learned, I would use later in life during my espionage career. And when I was almost 18, I was bored in Grand Rapids, okay? Sorry to all the Michigan people that might be on, but I was bored at the time.
Not much going on there.
So I wanted to be an actress. So I decided to move to New York City, the big city I heard about. So I moved out there, and there was a very famous actress at the time named Charlotte Cushman. Pauline Cushman is not my birth name. My birth name is Harriet Wood. Harriet Wood. See, Pauline Cushman sounds so much better. Well, I found this actress, Charlotte Cushman, and I said, well, heck, I just ride her coattails. So I took the name Pauline Cushman, and it stuck the rest of my life. So I did a lot of acting, and I wasn't getting a lot of success in the very beginning. And I went back down to New Orleans to try to do some shows and things. And, over the time, I met Charles, my first husband, Charles Dickinson. I've had 3 now, y'all. So this is the first one. And he was a musician and a music teacher. And we got married, had 2 kids, Charles and Ida. And when the war broke out, now I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I had been living up north because we moved to Chicago. We lived in Ohio for a while, where his family was from. And my brothers decided to fight for the Confederacy. 2 of my brothers. So, well, what am I going to do? I don't hate my family. I'm just going to sit there and wish them well and hope they don't end up dead. So he was husband number 1. He decided to enlist as a musician in an Ohio regiment. Well, in 1862, he is wounded, and then he comes down with dysentery. He's being taken care of at his parents' house because they had a much bigger house, and I was taking care of the 2 little ones. And well, good old Charles is not going to, his fate will not end very well. He ends up dying in December of 1862. No, excuse me, October of 1860. I got 3 husbands. I can't keep it all right. Okay, so now there have been said that he died of the illness caused from the wound and dysentery. I have found some research where he had a blunt force trauma injury, and I'd had nothing to do with that. So don't y'all be thinking that I killed somebody. I didn't. Okay, I'll let they all leave up that to you. So anyway, in the spring of 1863, I'm down in Kentucky doing a play called The 7 Sisters. And now, with all the boys being away at war, a lot of us lady actors were playing both roles. We would play male parts and female parts. Mm-hmm. And I was pretty good at both. And of course, Kentucky was a split state at the time. And one evening, now I do enjoy the company of some Confederate officers, gentlemen. I will say that because, trying to keep the Union together.
Absolutely.
But there was some Confederate officers that had been paroled. They came to one of my shows and they said, Miss Pauline, with your star power, we really want to get people on the side of the Confederacy. Will you toast Jefferson Davis? We'll give you $350. And at that time, that's a lot of money, $350. And I got two little ones, which I left them with my in-laws while I went out and tried to earn money, because really, I didn't really have much other skill than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I didn't know what to do. So I went to the local provost marshal and said, these two gentlemen offered me a bunch of money to toast Jefferson Davis. And he said, well, Pauline, we want you to do it. Let's rout out these Confederate sympathizers. Let's round them up. Okay. Do I get to keep the money? Oh, yes, Pauline, you do. Okay, I can do that. So a few nights later, I did that. I toasted and I raised my glass of wine and I toasted Jefferson Davis. Well, it just broke out. There were fights in the crowd. Some people were shocked. Some people were clapping. Well, by the end of the time I left the stage, I was out of a job. I was fired by the theater director, and I have no job. And they said, well, Pauline, you pulled off that so well. And I met with some Union officers, and they said, how about another career? How about being a spy for us? We think that you have the ability being portrayed. You can portray both roles of a man and a woman. You can get behind enemy lines and get us some information. I said, well, I will definitely do that. I am loyal to the Union, and I will try to help you get that. So that's kind of how it started. And it was quite an interesting time. Some people think I did it for the adventure because I'm not one to just stand around and wait for things to happen. But all those skills that I talked about, they did give me a revolver to carry for personal safety. I knew the terrain of some of these places that I went. I was able to, ride a horse. I was able to, protect myself, do all these kinds of things. I even found at a boarding house I was staying at that the woman who ran it was trying to poison Union officers. So I got that information and turned her in. Anyway, it led up to summer of 1863. And I was down in Shelbyville, Tennessee. And one of my jobs was I was working for General William Rosecrans. That they wanted information on what a man named General Braxton Bragg was doing. Good old Braxy Bragg. Now, a little bit before this, I was captured twice by someone by the name of John Hunt Morgan. Y'all know cavalry, you know who he is.
David mentioned him a few minutes ago, actually.
John Hunt Morgan, yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I managed to escape. They weren't too smart, them Confederate boys. Well, John Hunt Morgan finally gave up, and he was quite enthralled with the good major. I wasn't a major then at the time, but he loved Pauline, and we actually became friends. So anyway, I'm down in Shelbyville, and I managed. Now, people will ask, how did I get into Braxton Bragg's headquarters? Sometimes to do my espionage, I would give a story of, I'm looking for my lost brother, William. Mm-hmm. I'm a Confederate sympathizer. I want to help you guys. Is there anything I can do to do that? And also, too, I would turn on the charm. And, here's the thing with officers of the Civil War, okay? Whether it be Union or Confederate, you give them a little bit of food, a little bit of drink, and some attention, their mouths will run for hours, y'all, okay? So I was using my charm to get all this information, and I would never write anything down. I was told by General Rosecrans and his staff to never write anything down or take anything. It all up here, because I have a very good memory. That's probably why I had 3 husbands, too. So I did that. Always up here in my head. Well, one evening I managed to find my way behind Braxton Bragg's lines. And I was using the whole thing of, I'm looking for my lost brother. Well, I'm waiting for him. I happened to see they looked like important papers and a map. So I actually took it and put it in my boot. They said they couldn't help me. So I went to go return back behind the lines, and they grew a little suspicious of me. I got searched by pickets. They found what I was told not to do, I did. Okay. So they brought me to a man named Nathan Bedford Forrest. Some wizard of the saddle he is. Okay. I go to Nathan Bedford Forrest, and he says, Pauline Cushman, I know who you are. You're a famous actress. You're also a spy. How dare you try to get information on us? And I said, why, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. You have been caught red-handed, Pauline, and I will make sure to see you hang at the end of a rope and hear your neck snap. I said, well, sir, you are not a Southern gentleman. I said, and if I had my firearm, my Colt revolver that they took away from me, I would shoot you right in the face. As I did threaten to shoot Nathan Bedford Forrest. I ain't afraid of him or anybody else. I might have told him Jeb Stuart was a better cavalryman, but I don't know. So anyway, I'm brought up on charges by General Bragg. I am given a trial. I am convicted of being a spy, and I'm sentenced to hang. Right around the time of a little incident going up in Pennsylvania called Gettysburg. I developed a sickness. Now, I'm also an actress. Well, here's the thing. They couldn't hang me as long as I was sick. I needed to get better so they could kill me. So what did I do? I kind of played it up a little bit, that I was a little bit sicker than I was. So I was actually scheduled to be hanged like right around the beginning of July, one of those 3 days while there was that thing up in Gettysburg going on. So
that thing, yeah.
That, that whatever.
that little thing up there.
Let me tell you, if I was at Gettysburg, there wouldn't even been a battle, because I just would have said, you know what, Jeb Stuart's riding around getting his name in the papers. Don't even bother up here. You just all need to go back to Virginia, all right? So I am waiting to be hung. I keep playing the whole I'm too sick card. Well, here comes General Rosecrans and the boys, hot on the tail of General Bragg. Doctors say that I cannot travel. I'm too sick, and Bragg decides to leave me there. So I feigned sickness enough, and Rosecrans and his boys saved me. Of course, I'm outed as a spy. I can't do that espionage work anymore. So I can't do that anymore. And then later that year, I started doing lectures. Now, a man by the name of, you may have heard of him. He was also a president of the United States, James Garfield. He's a good friend of mine, good old James.
It's a familiar face or a name.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he recommended me for a rank in the military for my service of major. Well, he went, and I went and met with President Lincoln, and I did get that title, Major Pauline Cushman. I was also paid as a major as well.
That was a burning question I had, so I'm glad you answered that. I always wanted to know, how did Pauline Cushman gain the title major? So it was actually appointed to her. She didn't just claim major. It was
appointed to me. That's cool. I received a uniform, and that's how I would do my lectures. I started lecturing in the fall of 1863. And in 1864, I did some charity events with General Rosecrans. It was a fundraiser in Chicago for the Sanitary Commission. And I also did several other events as well throughout the end of the war. After the war, I'm still doing that. I worked with P.T. Barnum down in New York City. He brought me on to make some money. And then gradually, now the one thing that I did run into is as the war years, the difference of the years between the war and moving on from it, many people didn't want to hear the stories anymore. They wanted to just move on. So then I decided to move west. I met my second husband, August Fitcher. We were married a year, and he died mysteriously. Okay, next, won't tell you what happened to him. And then I actually ended up, I was down in Texas. I was in California. I ended up in Arizona, where I met my third husband, Jeremiah Fryer, who we ran business. I was quite the businesswoman. We had a couple businesses, and I would also bartend at the saloon of ours out there in Pinal County. And I didn't put up with none of this. I don't take anything, whether you be man or woman. I don't put up with it.
Right.
I had a man who was quite drunk, demanded to be served, and I said, no, you need to stop. You need to go home. No more alcohol for you. And he threatened to come over at the bar at me, and I reached down and pulled out my I got my revolver back, and I said, "You got about 15 seconds to get off my property." He said, "You wouldn't shoot me." And I said, "Oh, yes, I would." One, he didn't make it to three. He was out the door. So, also did a lot of things out in, you know, just speaking to people just out on the streets and things like that, trying to tell, the history of what I did and what a lot of the other people of the Civil War did. I also there was a man who was beating on his horse in Tombstone one day, and I told him to stop because I'm quite the horsewoman. I was always around horses, and he was not very nice. He used some profanity with me, so I decided to take the horse whip and turn it on him. So yes, as you can see, I'm not one to just sit back and take abuse. So
I can imagine. There's Darren. So we have some friends over in the UK, even learning about Pauline Cushman tonight, which is very cool. Darren, hello. And I want to circle back to one of David's comments because I found it kind of comical, and I think you will too. David says, "I mean, if Pauline ate some of those trivia prizes."
well, that's
Can't help
probably
it.
what took out. She could take out Nathan Bedford Forrest and Braxton Bragg with my trivia prizes, y'all. So
Yeah, they're phenomenal prizes, by the way.
I actually I help administrate a group about the trivia prizes. I help
Hmm.
administrate a group, Gettysburg Battlefield Is On or Dead on Facebook. I do trivia every Saturday night, and I give out some fake, wonderful, delicious, maybe not so much trivia prizes. So that's where that comment came from. So
That's awesome. I'm absolutely learning a lot because that's some of the questions I've always had about Pauline Cushman. Was again that big one was how did she obtain the title major? So to find out that she was appointed, that was a rather very interesting thing to learn
well,
today.
the research that, especially with everything nowadays more digitized, things like
Hmm.
that, which I think has been great. I was able to actually find records and articles about how she was due back pay and she wasn't getting anywhere with the War Department. So she called on her friend, President Lincoln, went to visit
So
him
she
and
knew
say,
Lincoln too.
yes.
Oh wow.
She was at his funeral. She went to the White House and said, "I want my back pay. You need to make this happen." And he did. He told the paymaster to pay this woman the back pay. So I found articles and I also found some documents that, something that I had always wondered about, I was able to find now. So that's why there's so much more research out about her that I wanted to do a book. Like I said, the last one that came out was about 20 years ago.
Hmm.
And that's why I think that more of her story needs to be told.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we have Civil War Breakfast Club saying the that Cushman has such an interesting story, and yeah, guys, I'm finding that out very much so now. I'm
Well, I also like to tell
shocked.
about her. I look at these people were all human beings. Okay. They were capable of good, they were capable of bad. A
Mhm.
couple things that I include in my Cushman programs is one, she was an alcoholic.
She was.
Yes. She
Hmm.
loved whiskey. See, this is why my friend Randy said she's perfect for you. She loved whiskey. And then I
Whiskey
found
is
that
pretty
she was
good.
introduced to it by the Chippewas, the firewater, when she was a teenager.
So, would she actually call it firewater? Would she refer to it, or was that something that Chippewas taught her?
She referred to it as whiskey,
Hmm.
but I'm just referring it to it as,
Okay, okay.
yeah. Um, I found that she had a problem with it all her life. I thought it was more towards the end of her life when she was having problems with arthritis and um, uh, possibly an injury too. I've only found one source of this, and I'm trying to find that she was injured in the left ankle when a somebody shot at her and one of the bullets grazed a rock and it came up and hit her in the ankle. I haven't been able
Hmm.
to substantiate it with a second account. I don't include that in my programs, but she
Right.
was in a lot of pain. So I originally thought that her problem with alcohol was more towards the latter part of her life, but in reality, she was introduced to it at a young age and had it. She loved her whiskey. Oh my goodness, Too bad Maker's Mark wasn't around back then. I think she would have really liked it. And yes, I do have it for all you
My
folks.
favorite whiskey was around back then, so that's a funny thing. I wonder if she
Oh,
ever
please
tried it.
don't say Old Crow.
Oh God, no. Ew, ugh.
Okay, Old Crow
Do
for
people
y'all.
still drink that?
Yes. Old Crow was a favorite of General James Longstreet, and let me put it to you this way:
What?
it can take the knotty pine out of a knotty pine. It can take the knot out of knotty pine, y'all. That's how bad it is, y'all. So just
I drink
saying.
1776 rye whiskey. That's 100 proof, and it's pretty like it's strong. Ugh, God, I mean, but it was supposedly produced during the
Hmm.
Revolution and onwards, and it's still being produced by the same distiller today. So I thought that was rather cool. But it's rot gut, MJ. I can't lie to you. It's not good. It's
I
still
don't
kind
drink
of
a lot of
crappy.
whiskey.
Oh, God,
I'm a
I love
bourbon
it.
girl, so
All right, we have David saying, "I can relate to loving whiskey, as you should." Travis Keith Arnold, that's a nice Willie Nelson. Someone did give a Willie Nelson shout out when we mentioned whiskey, so I mean that's appropriate, I'd
okay.
say. And David Maxwell also says that is a good whiskey. Yes, sir, it is. Indeed, Makers is pretty good too. I
Makers
enjoy
is
a
my
Makers from time to time.
Makers 46 is my favorite. And here's the
Okay.
funny thing of how so she had the problem with the whiskey, and then also too at the end of her life when she was having all this pain, she got addicted to painkillers.
Oh shoot.
Okay. After she left the third husband, Jeremiah Fryer, because he had a wandering eye. Now, meanwhile, before this, both of her children died. They never made it to adulthood. Okay, from illness. They had an adopted daughter when she was with the third husband. She dies at 18. So there's a lot of sadness in Pauline's life.
Mm-hmm.
She's also having a lot of pain, so she got addicted to painkillers, and she was mixing painkillers with whiskey. Now, that's one thing I will not do at a program. But actually, somebody did ask me that if I would do that at a program. I said, no, I'm not doing that. So I always include that aspect of her life because she did struggle. She didn't
Right.
have this amazing heroine story for the rest of her life. She died poor on December 2nd, 1893, from an overdose. And for a while, I didn't know there were some rumors that it was intentional. I always thought there's no way that this woman went through so much in her life and would kill herself. Then, some people thought it was accidental. So I was able to actually, through research, I found autopsy records, and then there was
Oh wow.
yeah, there was two different autopsies done, and then there was another meeting of doctors that said it was accidental. She had like
Hmm.
8 times the normal limit of this painkiller in her system. So she died penniless. The local GAR, this is out in San Francisco, the local
Okay.
GAR is going to recognize who she is. She is buried in a Veterans National Military Cemetery out at the Presidio
Mhm.
in San Francisco. You can go pay a visit to her if you're out that way. She's listed under Pauline C. Fryer, which was her third married name. Um, so, she had quite the life. It wasn't always the fame. It wasn't always, being a heroine. Towards the end of her life, like many people of the Civil War, they die. I mean, she was, pretty penniless. And um, that's why I wanted to portray her, to get her story out, because it's a great story to tell. And the number of people that I have. So the funny thing about the whiskey is that somebody came to Gettysburg last July, because my Living History group does free programs over the days of the anniversary in Unity Park.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he came with his friends. He really wasn't into the Civil War or anything, but he came with his friends for the day. And he heard my take on Pauline Cushman and whiskey. And he came over and he said, Major, I'd love to have a conversation with you. I said, about history? He goes, no, about whiskey. And we talked about bourbon and whiskey. And then he got more interested in the historical side of it. It's telling those stories that we need to. And that's why I do it. That's why I will be in a wool uniform in July heat and humidity in Gettysburg for 3 or 4 days in a row, from 10 a.m. in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. These stories, I feel honored to be able to portray her and get the stories out. And I get such good feedback too. I had an email from a woman who, her daughter came to my program, um, and was so hooked by this history of Cushman that her daughter did her history project this past fall in school on Cushman. And the history teacher never even had heard of Pauline Cushman. So it's those kinds of things, and those, you're really outreaching to people. And that's what I love doing. I wouldn't say Cushman was obscure per se, was really buried in obscurity, but what I've tried to do, and I think I'm doing a good job of it, is pulling her out of this history to bring her story into the 21st century. So I really I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy telling, because you get a lot of get a lot of questions when you're doing programs in Gettysburg. You get a lot of questions about the battle. I try to be well versed in that history. It is my favorite battlefield to study, and you try to get all the stories out and tell them. Now, Cushman was at Gettysburg, but not for the battle. She did visit in 1867. She visited the battlefield. She was doing a lecture program up in Harrisburg, so
Really?
she did come to Gettysburg. She took a tour, and she just said it was hallowed ground, and that it really, and she hoped it would stand for quite a while to tell the history of what happened there.
Very good. And the Civil War Breakfast Club over there on Facebook says you do an amazing job telling her story, MJ. And I'd agree. I mean, that was extremely informal. And David Maxwell also commented that your level of research is exemplary. And I think.
Well, I thank you for the kind comments, folks. And I really try, because I believe, me personally, if you're going to do something, then do it well. And I think that if I did anything less, I'm not doing an honor to her. I think Randy would probably come out of heaven and kick my butt too if I didn't do it right. And I try to do that too, like by telling Winfield Scott Hancock's story, or by, talking about, I have people say to me on groups, well, I can't go to Gettysburg right now because Little Round Top's closed. I said, well, there's plenty of other places to go. How about East Cemetery Hill? How about Culp's Hill? There's all kinds of history. How about going to see where David Ireland and his regiment made a charge in the dark? And,
I like to see Culp's Hill get some more love if we're going to talk Gettysburg, because that's a great place on the battlefield.
It is. It truly is. And I actually had paternal ancestors that fought at Culp's Hill with 145th New York.
Oh, no kidding.
I found that out too. So, I feel blessed to do it. And so many people, and I'll be honest with you, I do get hate too. I've gotten hate from day one. I've even gotten it from women, because well, you're not portraying her correctly. You should be in a dress with a hoop skirt and portray her civilian side. I said, well, that's not what I'm doing. I've gotten that, but I look at it this way: for out of 100 people, one person might not like what I do, but the other 99 are supporting me, and that's what's important. That's what I focus on. And it's taken me a while to not pay attention anymore to negativity, but I've worked on it quite well, and I just let it roll off my shoulders. Not everybody is going to like what you do. There is another woman that portrays Cushman in Ohio. She does more of a civilian aspect to her, and I may not agree with something that she does or anything like that or whatever, but I would never ever message her and say hey or whatever. Like, I've talked with this woman, we've shared some research, but some people have balls to just, like, people will message me and just give me hate. Why? Or
right.
Like, they'll trash me, or they'll it's incredible. But and then also too, coming into living history, reenacting community, many will say that is a man's world. I don't think that's true, and that's why I came into it. And you have to have a thick skin, but I've learned over the past 5 years I've done it that I do have a lot of support, and attitudes are changing, which is great. And I actually the first time I was at Remembrance Day as Cushman, these two guys were as privates, and I was just walking to go get my car after the Remembrance Day parade. And these two guys came up to me and they said, I will never salute a woman in uniform. How dare you? And
That's pretty insensitive to say.
I was like, okay, whatever. And then the second year I was at Gettysburg, I was taking part in some of the on-field programs up on Cemetery Ridge by Ziegler's Grove. And the number of guys that would salute me as an officer, it was, and that would give me, support. It was amazing. So, And that's why if you want to do this, then do it. Don't. And like I said, that's why Cushman and I have such similar personalities. Um, she went and she lived her life how she wanted to. And I am blessed that I get to do this.
Oh, it's incredible. And I'm glad you do this because it's inspiring. I think for especially a lot of younger folks. 'Cause I'm sure both of you know that in this day and age, we're trying to reach so many audiences and gather so many people into this Civil War history field so that we can keep it alive. Because we're thinking about the future too. Like when we're gone, who's going to pick up the torch and continue to carry these stories of all those men and women who served in any capacity during the Civil War, who had a story from the war? How is this going to continue? How do we continue telling the story if we cannot interest the youth? I mean, it's really who we're trying to get into this. And I'm just from my days around the Civil War battlefields and all the experiences I've had there, I have seen a lot of interest in the younger generation, and I'm hoping that sticks. But the things that you're doing and the way that you're able to reach different audiences, I think that really helps to keep that story alive. So I'm very appreciative of what you do, and I love to hear the stories. And I'm loving to actually learn more about Pauline Cushman. I don't even need to pick up a book. I can just be like, "Hey, MJ, I have a question about Pauline Cushman.
I'm
Can you
always
help?"
here, and
Yeah.
I agree with you, Ty, because I get out. I do, a lot of my events are at Gettysburg, but I go do other places, and there's kids that are interested. There's
Mhm.
kids looking up. Paul, there's kids that will look up Pauline Cushman after a program. They will look up, any of the folks in my living history group, whether it be Ulysses S. Grant or it'll be, General Buford or Louisa May Alcott. There's a lot of it. Like I said, and I had that story where the girl did her school project on Cushman. I have so many people come up to me and they just, they say, "Thank you, we support you." I was actually in the mine in Gettysburg Remembrance Day weekend.
It's a fun place to be.
Well, it gets more interesting as it gets later, just so y'all know. Well, anyway, I was there, um, and I was in uniform because Remembrance Day weekend, my living history group is there for on-field ceremonies. We also partake in the parade, and then every year I volunteer to read names and greet people for the Remembrance Day illumination
Mhm.
ceremony. And afterwards, I was getting a drink, and I had a woman kind of pull me aside and say, "Major Cushman, thank you so much. I've been wanting to meet you. I follow you on social media. You've inspired me." And I said, "That's great." And she's like, "No, you've inspired me to get into reenacting. I found a group that will because, there were many women that hid their gender to join these regiments and fight with both the Union and the Confederacy. Even though some people don't want to believe that it did happen, and there's documentation of it." And she said, "I want to thank you because following you for the past year, it inspired me to get into it." So, that's what's important, outreaching to people and just got to get the history out because, like I said, sometimes it's not taught in schools. I meet a lot of kids that are homeschooled or they don't know about it. And they just, when you can interact with them too, especially in a first person level. I had an 8-year-old kid come up to me and he was mesmerized by Miss Cushman and he had his cell phone.
Mhm.
And I said, "What is that magic box?" And he said, "What's a cell phone?" I said, "What is a cell phone? I don't know what that is. What does that do? I'm afraid of that." "Oh, don't be afraid of it." So he's trying to tell me, and like his parents know what I'm doing, right? I'm staying in that time frame in
Right.
persona. Kid's kind of getting a little frustrated. Well, his brother, who was about maybe 10, his brother said, "Major Cushman, would you like to know what it is?" And I said, "What is that?" He said, "It is the descendant of your telegraph." And I was blown away. And this kid, I'm like, wow. Sometimes the kids have the best questions. So there is a
That's
lot of
awesome.
interest. And sometimes I don't believe all the hype that you read on social media and stuff about, oh, there's nobody interested in Civil War anymore. The kids, they are out there.
They
And
really are.
if you can engage them, and that's the thing. I try to present programs either as Cushman. I also do programs on General Hancock. And I try to engage people because if you can get their attention and grab them, it might inspire them to go research more, like my trivia. Okay, we have a little fun on trivia nights, but it engages people. People learn things. They said, I didn't know the answer. I went and looked it up. Oh, I never heard of, Solomon Meredith. I'm going to go read some more about him. That's so awesome to hear when you engage people and they want to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We had quite a few comments here. I'm going to go circle back to a few of them. This one, especially for Anthony, because like we said, we have another Barlow fan in here. So that is awesome. Anthony's
working in my real world Civil War life. I don't get to work at a site where Barlow fought, but was president. Going back to the comment about women soldiers, I mean, the 61st New York had at least 2 or 3 confirmed women in the ranks, right? One of them looking for her husband and gets caught, and then they I think the quote in the paper is they unsexed her and then told her to get lost, and she ends up spending a couple of nights at a Corps headquarters. I saw the Barlow comment and figured circle back to Barlow, women soldiers, and praising him all at the same time. So it's rare to be able to do that, but.
My friend Andrea Quinn on here. I don't understand these 11th Corps people, y'all. Okay, I mean Barlow finally came to a
hey, Second Corps,
Team Second Corps, right there. Okay, Team Second Corps.
Well, also, who's the only 11th
Sixth Corps? Actually,
hold on a second. Who are the only 11th Corps units to not get walloped by that overhyped Confederate general?
Let me guess.
1 brigade in the 11th Corps. 1 brigade in the 11th Corps. Let me
guess.
And you know who was smart there? Dan Sickles. So Sickles and Barlow are able to take it.
Oh no, that's a spun so bad. No.
Stand with
defending
Dan.
Sickles and Barlow in the same sentence. There you go.
Oh my god, dude. You guys are on one today. I love it.
But
no, it's always here is 11th Corps, 2nd Corps. Where's my 6th Corps love? I know they don't do
where's my 18th
that.
Corps? Where's my 18th Corps?
And then Darren comes in with Team 5th Corps. Like Warren? Really?
Well, hold on. No. The real Corps is 3rd Corps Army of Virginia. 3rd Corps Army of Virginia. Irvin McDowell, Part 2. Man.
Irvin McDowell.
Part 2. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, we've got that's my friend Andrea. I mean, like I said, she does great work with trying to tell Barlow's story, and his wife. I have so many great friends in the Civil War community. Ty, I've got the Civil War Breakfast Club. I've got so many people that support me. We try to support each other. We try to support each other and help promote all of these stories. And I'll be honest with you. Honestly, I have no problem with Oliver Otis Howard. I really don't. I think he did well enough to go lead an army at West. Okay. I think the 11th Corps, if you read some of the personal accounts of the Confederate soldiers at Gettysburg, they fought pretty hard, these 11th Corps guys. But you have these gatekeepers, okay? I'm going to call them gatekeepers they think that, okay, when you hear Dan Sickles, okay, immediately you think we just had the anniversary of the Sickles Key incident. Okay.
Yeah, he said it was FU Key Day yesterday.
FU Key Day.
Yeah, well, and somebody said to me that, oh, he's awful, he did nothing for Gettysburg, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, he was actually the one to help get the military park in Gettysburg,
Right.
I mean, people are gatekeepers. Like you have, I got hate. I talked about David Ireland a couple times, and I got hate from the Chamberlain 20th Maine folks. I said, just because I'm not mentioning Chamberlain, I'm not taking anything away from what they did. I said, I'm just giving a highlight to say a David Ireland, or, if you think about, Sickles, I mean, that's been a debate for a long time. If he doesn't make that move, what happens? He causes Longstreet to have to make command decisions on the fly. So,
right.
And it's kind of like this gatekeeping thing that people have. Like I portray Pauline Cushman. I always love I'm researching almost every day. If somebody has something that I don't know about, I welcome the information because then
Absolutely.
I can help add to her story. I'm not going to say, oh no, well, I know everything about Pauline Cushman. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Same thing with Hancock. I know a lot about him, but it's not anything where there's something new that can't be involved. I mean, I think that sharing information and just getting the stories out there. We all need to work together in the Civil War community.
No,
And
and I agree wholeheartedly. We actually had Lynn over on Facebook make a very, I think, impactful comment. She said, "You all inspire me, and I'm grateful you're doing what you're doing. I'm a healthcare provider, and history was always intimidating to me. I was not good at it in school because I wasn't taught well. You all make it engaging, and sometimes I'm here for happy hour to drink." And I'll raise my glass to that one. Like, we do this because we want everyone to feel a part of this conversation, because history does not belong to one single person or someone that maybe is that. It is all of us. It's a group effort here, and that's why we
And
do it.
and Tyler, an unpopular opinion: Civil War history is not just 72 days in July of 1863. It is from the founding. It's going on today.
It is
Getting people out to these sites is how we keep that going.
right, and not to take a shot at Howard, but
don't just. But wait, Tyler.
I paid him $5, so
go ahead, Anthony. I'll finish it. Go ahead.
It's like okay, Gettysburg, cool. 3 days plus a hospital plus a movie plus a whole bunch of cannons. Okay, add that all together. What do you get? You get less than a year, right? Take other communities like Fredericksburg, where 100,000 men will die and get wounded over the course of that many years.
And Howard gets his nickname, uh-oh.
Or better yet, how about this unpopular opinion, right? The Eastern Theater is a whole bunch of mass murder on a grand scale. The Western Theater is where it's at. I'm just going to
and you know what? I would think that the Western Theater, there's a lot of decisive action happening, more so than the Eastern Theater. I would say that because there's a lot of decisions and very important decisions happening here, and exponentially so, especially like you said, Fredericksburg, where you do lose 100,000 in 19 months of fighting. That's pretty astronomical.
And Prince William County.
There's 2 little battles that take place there. I wouldn't say they're little. Actually, there are 3 battles. And yeah, Fauquier County too. We can't neglect Fauquier. I mean, you could literally throw a stone and hit a Civil War site in the state of Virginia. Like that's what's really crazy about that entire thing. We have a lot of comments here, so I want to catch up with our folks over here. All right, so starting here, people like Sickles make us interested in history. I mean, dude, Sickles is an interesting individual. I agree. Read out.
He can engage, yes.
Yeah, he's awesome. All right, we got David Maxwell. Ireland was amazing. So is George Green. Green's the man, no doubt about that. I absolutely concur. Yeah. Andrea Quinn says, sharing our research is important. Lots of ties to overlap. And I think that if you are able to engage in conversation with your research, there is a lot that you're going to learn from somebody else that you may have not learned before. Go ahead, Ann.
If you have any 61st New York stuff, let me know.
There you go. See, this is what we do. Nice plug there.
All
right. Sharing information is how we learn. I'll see. I'm loving this. Darren sent a beer mug, which is also very good to do. God darn it, making me drink another one.
Y'all are trying to get me.
I'm not throwing tea in the Rappahannock tonight, Darren. But if you keep sending stuff like this and making us do that, I might get ready to go grab these tea bags that have been sitting in my counter. I actually bought them for you because I drink coffee. Remember Columbia Bang Bang? We filter coffee through coffee filters. All right, I'm going to sidetrack this real quick. I love Darren, and this is the greatest thing ever. So he came to visit for the 159th of Fredericksburg. So Darren and I collaborated and did this really fun project on the 159th. And we had a meetup at this place called Rebellion Whiskey. So Major, if you ever come down to Fredericksburg, we got to go to Rebellion Whiskey because Rebellion and Whiskey.
Pencil that in.
Yeah,
no, that sounds good.
It's awesome. Well, we had a friend named Daryl show up and hand Darren a bag of coffee because, tea, England, coffee, not so much. When he gets home, he FaceTimes me and shows me that his coffee grounds are floating in the coffee. And I asked him, like, don't you have a Keurig? He goes, what the F is that? I was like, oh my God.
Share his comment that he has there on the top.
Where does he say? Oh, I'm getting up to that one.
The comment with the
thumbs down. Oh, I told him I was throwing tea in the Rappahannock River. Even though the Rappahannock looks like tea with milk in it, it's still, yeah, it's not don't swim in it. Yeah. All right, Civil War Breakfast Club says we all have a part. Absolutely. And I love that there's so many of these online history bases that we can go to nowadays, because it seems like it's a community, and it's a very supportive community. And without folks like Civil War Breakfast Club, without folks like you, MJ, and all of us together, I don't think this would be as supportive as it is. And I've watched Gary's big follower video that he did, and he mentioned that, and it really struck something good. I was like, this is incredible to see a community that has formed. And it's from the pandemic on. This was something that we had to do when the pandemic happened, because we weren't out giving tours physically. We weren't able to be on the field in large groups. So we had to adapt and improvise. And this is what came of that. And to see this outreach of Civil War historians gathering and making these awesome content pages and just being able to support each other is something incredible. We're showing that it's not competition, because there are a lot of podcasts and episodes and shows out there that are very standoffish, very competitive, very financially driven. And those tend to steer. I don't even tune into those anymore. And, not to take any shots at anyone. It's just, those aren't fun. Those aren't engaging. Those are just very bland. I'm here to make money, and I can tell that you're here to make money. And that's not what we're doing.
And to go on your comment there, Ty, which I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been thinking about this and had some conversations too. I think ultimately what gets lost by these folks is the history. The history should be the star of the show.
Absolutely.
Not you, not me, not anybody. And by people doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And to me, I think it creates negativity that doesn't need to be there. The history gets lost. And, this is a great thing that came out of the pandemic. We can outreach to so many people. Some people aren't physically able to get to events and to battlefields. And,
right.
Whether they live far away or maybe, they have illnesses that prevent them from doing that, we can outreach to so many people. It's kind of like being able to stream movies nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I think that there is definitely a place for it. And, I have people that, that are sick. They can't, some people are homebound, whatever, but, hey, if they want to watch, a program, then let it. It's a great thing. It shouldn't be taken away. And some folks that they want to be these big stars, I want to be famous. Jim Hessler and I have this great thing about being Gettysburg famous. Being Gettysburg famous is kind of like Tom Cruise without all the money. Okay. All these people some people want these big names. They want to be famous. And I think it gets lost, the history, and by doing that. And I myself would never, do paid content where somebody has to pay to hear me tell that story. I myself, if somebody wants to do that, that's great. Let them go on their own path. I do it a little bit differently, and it's great that all these other people, we come together and we do that, because, I just think ultimately the history is what suffers. And again, I feel very blessed to be able to do this, and we have a responsibility that this was our calling, that we answered to share that. Okay. Do I have a large following? Absolutely. And I am appreciative and blessed for all of them. I've met some awesome people in the Civil War community. I have met some interesting people in the Civil War community. and I will admit, I do have a few stalkers out there too, that there's actually a couple that have been banned from my Living History Group events for following me around. It's because they can't separate MJ from Major Pauline Cushman. Okay.
Right.
Like, I had people online trashing me a few months ago saying that I was an alcoholic because I bring up whiskey or whatever for Cushman. And I'm like, no, I don't go. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't go to meetings. But anyway, and some people can't make that. Now, it is very easy for me to come in and out of persona, but I can separate my persona from who I really am.
Absolutely.
Some people, and even there are some living historians and reenactors that can't do that. That sometimes it just all just melds together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the community that we have, and we're keeping it growing, of just coming together, sharing the history, keeping their names alive. And I said, I do this for Pauline Cushman. I do this for the people of the Civil War. I do this to make sure their names and stories are never forgotten.
No, and I love that. And we have some more comments. Lynn over here on Facebook also says, also the various infighting amuses me, so I hang with y'all, learn something, add to my reading, have audible books and chats to listen to while I quilt or clean or work on grad school stuff. And 2, the drinking community. 3, the infighting, maybe not in that order. I don't know, but the infighting some weird stuff. That's, again, like MJ had caveated earlier, it's not about us. We're here to just relay stories from what happened. We're vessels in that regard. We are the ones that are able to take that torch that I spoke about, or the proverbial torch that is, and continue teaching younger folks, or anyone. It doesn't have to be younger, but it's just in everyone. So all across the board, we're trying to engage and make it different. Because again, what I love about Civil War Breakfast Club is that it's not that guy up on the lecture. It's like, and today Francis Barlow was the greatest general of all time. Not taking any shots.
That's every day. That's every day.
Yeah, okay, that's every day. There you go.
No, you're misguided. Very misguided indeed.
Yeah, that's Emory Upton, folks. We know that.
You're misguided too. So,
hey, he was in San Francisco for a bit too.
It's all about Winnie Boy.
Irvin McNell. Oh.
I'm not going to bring up Fredericksburg tonight. I'm going to save that one for another time.
So you had to go there.
I always do. I mean, I'm half a mile from the, so.
RKO is all I'm going to say.
You mispronounced Claiborne. I love that comment.
Yeah, who said that?
You mispronounced Claiborne.
Oh.
Stonewall of the West, right? I heard Ed Bars say that so many times in his voice. He did a talk at the Rappahannock Valley Roundtable, and if he didn't say Claiborne more than 100 times in his talk, I swear. And so that anytime I hear the word name Patrick Claiborne, I just hear Ed Bars's long drawl of Patrick Claiborne, and it's the greatest thing ever. So I'm glad somebody brought him up. Civil War Breakfast Club over on Facebook says, Ty, 100% agree. Thank you. We are all in this together too, but we are indeed vessels. We aren't the soldiers. We are just able to relay history through that. We have David Maxwell with, of course, you mispronounced Claiborne. I appreciate you guys very much over there at Civil War Breakfast Club. I think this is a big team effort. Everybody does have individual brands that we work on, but I think at the end of the day, it's so cool that everybody is so supportive of each other. I
ran into them at a site that you and I know very well, Tyler, a few months ago. So it was cool.
Oh, really?
Jail? Oh, I'm sorry. That was Major Cushman I don't know where that came from. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God. No, that was probably it. Yeah. Knowing us.
I know the parties involved, so I'm pretty sure that's where it was.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. But we don't want to tell everybody that. That's why we're like, that place that we know, there were some good bars, but they weren't the bars that we like to go to. They were the ones that were withholding us from escaping.
There's bars on the houses.
No, it's a great time when you can meet up with these folks.
It is.
People that you talk to online all the time, but and the thing is most of the people, and I try to be just genuine. Yeah. I try to be the same in person as I am online, and a lot of you guys are as well, and we're just genuine, and we're just getting together to share the history, because that's what we put at center. The spotlight is the history. And it's not about, people think that I make a bunch of money portraying Cushman. Let me tell y'all, no, if anything, I spent on my trip to Gettysburg last year, which was for hotel, because the Major Cushman does not tent camp, y'all. Okay. Major Cushman's headquarters is at the hotel. But anyway, so, but between hotel, travel expenses, and I live in upstate New York. So it's a 5.5 hour, 6 hour ride from where I live to and from. So you have gas, tolls, food. I probably spend well over $1,500 of my own money
on one trip. On
one trip to Gettysburg to do this for several days, where I'm out doing programs. Okay. And so I know I've had people accuse me of making money off of, I had a hater comment, I think it was last week, that said I was making money off of Cushman and Hancock's pain and suffering. I said, where's this money? Because I don't know. I don't make it. I mean, I mean, to get into living history, it can be an expensive hobby. I think for my
it can be.
for my uniform, for my accessories, it was almost $2,000. Although I did sell my engagement and wedding ring after I left my husband to help pay for it. And he said, yeah, he said, "You're not doing living history." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "I don't think so." But it can be expensive, and that's what people don't understand. I'm not doing this I don't make any money. I'm doing this because I love it. It's a passion. We're all
Right.
passionate about this. That's the thing. And if we need to deliver it, and not that way of, like you said, I had a history teacher in 11th grade who talked like this. And today
Oh,
we're going to read the statistics of blah, blah, blah.
I
And
wouldn't
I
even
just
need
said,
sleep medicine for that. That's
oh
I'm
my
already
God,
falling
it was
asleep.
yeah.
horrendous. And so many people will say, like that comment we had from that person, Lynn, about how they didn't do well in it in school. They thought it was boring. That's what we try to do. And on our different platforms, we can accomplish it, which we do is we make it fun. We make it engaging.
Absolutely.
And, some people must think that there was no humor ever in the Civil War either.
Really?
There had to be, to
There was a
deal with the
lot of
kind
it.
of stuff that they did day in and day out. There was, and we make it engaging. We make it that people want to learn, want to connect with us too. I mean, people will stop me in an elevator, at a hotel in Gettysburg, and "Oh, Major Cushman, can we take a picture with you? We follow you." I consider it. I'm flattered, and I'll do it.
You got a comment on there.
Did you see
He
what
just said,
Darren said? He said MJ spent more than $1,500 at the mine with us last weekend.
"Do you see what I got to deal with? This kind of stuff. You see what I got?" Okay, let me tell you something, Boston boy. I'm coming down there, and they're going to be an RKO. The same. If y'all don't know what an RKO
She
is, look it
delivers
up.
RKOs pretty often.
I
Yeah.
do. I got to
So
get my
did you
proper.
trade those out for demerits? Or are you
No,
just
I
at the
give.
point now?
Well, no, actually, the funny thing is at first it started with looks and demerits.
I love the lead look. I've gotten those a few times myself. I have to admit.
Yes,
I
and then I
know.
added different looks too. I have Armistead. I have Hancock. I have a couple of other. I think I have a Sam Hood look too. And
They
then
said
for
they're
some
going to the
reason, one night,
right.
you know what it was? Because I think I was flipping through the channels, and Monday Night Raw was on, and I remember because I used to work at a sports arena years ago, and I remember when they used to come to our sports arena. I said, "Damn, Randy Orton's still wrestling. What is he, like 80 years old?" I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, so I made a joke of RKO, and then it just became a thing.
Just
So
blew up
I
from
said,
there.
he's got to send me some free swag or something for keeping his name out there. So Randy Orton, if you're watching this, message me and get me. I want a hoodie.
There you go. And we have Beth Wheeler saying, "Agree, MJ. It's who is teaching. I had some good and bad history too, as did I. I've had some good ones and some very boring chalkboard teachers that just wanted to.
Oh.
Yeah, it was no.
And and I hate to say that, like the licensed battlefield guide exam for Gettysburg is very intense,
Yeah, no, it
and
is.
and it's such a selective process. And I've known some people that have taken it that are very knowledgeable people, and I don't take anything away from them, but they can't. They're just kind of like dry, and they can't engage the visitors. And unfortunately, they don't make it through the last round because of that. You need to be able to engage a visitor. You need to know your audience, who you're talking to.
Absolutely.
Okay. If, when I was still married, my 84-year-old mother-in-law, she had ancestors fight in Tennessee at Gettysburg. I brought her. Now, I'm not going to take her, I took her around the field, but I took her to the Tennessee Monument, and we talked about where her ancestors had fought. That's knowing your audience. You need to know who you're talking to, like, a lot of times when there's a lot of kids at my living history group programs, they love the espionage and the spy thing. They don't want to hear about General Hunt's artillery, okay, with his talking about his solid shot and his canister. They want to hear about the excitement of a spy. Oh, is it dangerous? Oh, did you ever get hurt? How did you do that? So it's important to know your audience too. And
No, absolutely.
that's what we all do. Like you said, we have different brands, but we all come together to make it engaging for folks that they want to learn. They want to look things up.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, one of the greatest things I can see is when kids come up to me after a program and they've got Pauline Cushman on their phone and they want to learn more about her. And that's an awesome thing. And I don't get paid for this, but I get paid in other ways. So
And we have Darren saying
To answer Andrea's.
Yes, go ahead. I'll put that one back up.
To answer Andrea's comment, no, I have not. But that's awesome.
That is awesome. So Andrea, could you elaborate more on that?
I didn't. Real quick. I do mean it though. If you have any 61st New York stuff, I mean, I got I'm working on a regimental history on it. So if you've got anything, let me know.
Can you tell this guy likes a 61st a little bit?
No, I never would have guessed.
Especially Spencer Cone.
Never would have guessed.
And Darren Weeks says history isn't the past,
History
it's
isn't
today.
past.
People like MJ and you guys who keep these people alive through storytelling are so important. And as are you, Darren. Like I said, I love the stories you guys tell.
Mary.
And it's important to also have fun when we're talking about them, because the Civil War is not a beautiful topic. This is war we're talking about. And I think it helps to remember, too, at the end of the day, these are lives. These are the empty chairs, the, again, proverbial empty chair that we talk about. But it's also something that we should have fun with, because we're able to grab so many more people when we see that there is passion. That's what makes it fun. I think that there's a lot of passionate people when it comes to this topic in particular, history in general. But for us, we picked the Civil War because that was what spoke to us the most. Anthony, yes, sir.
Well, going along with what, hey, Charles Vinoy's on.
Hey,
Charles. So going to Darren's comment there, it's the men it's the men and women that don't have the pictures, that don't have the to borrow a title of a book of a friend. It's the nameless and the faceless that that matter. Right. And it's being able to get their stories across. And it's not take the Jacksons and the Shermans and the Grants of the world. Cool. There's books galore on them. But let's go further down. Right. You've got the Pauline Cushmans of the war. You've got the I don't know, the people that will never have a book or multiple books written about them. Right. So it's those guys that matter, I think, more than those, because Sherman never got killed in the war. Lee never got killed in the war. What about the nameless and the faceless men who we'll never know, right? That's the people. The monuments don't need to be marble; they're all the grass in the preserved places.
That's right.
I think that's what's great about I think that's great about what the Major does, right? Is being able to tell those people her story that did not. That will not, right, in the past, has not, that's the right word, has not risen to the point that it should be.
Right.
Well, so, I thank you for that.
I'm giving a cheering from Prince William County.
Seriously. There you are. And I'm in Salem Church, so
I think
not a favorite place of Hancock's, but I'm here.
It really hit.
Sorry. I don't want to get an RKO. I'm sorry. I saw that look.
Anyway.
It's a Sam Hood look or a Jubilee look?
A mixture of the two. I felt that look, man.
It really hit me when you can volunteer for Remembrance Day in Gettysburg. They're always looking for volunteers to either greet or read names, and I do both. And the first year I did it, I was assigned 150 names to read of people that died at Gettysburg. These are your grunts. These are your common soldiers, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
After I was done, and we would read down the list, and we would also read unknowns. So after you read 6 unknowns in a row, it gets you right here. The first year I did it, I got done, excused myself, and I went by one of the trees in the National Cemetery there, and I just cried. Just hit me. I had somebody come up to me after I did it this past year. It was a gentleman in a Confederate officer's outfit. And he said, "Major Cushman, thank you so much for reading the names. They should all be remembered." And he just started crying. And I would invite anyone to try to read that list of names, especially hitting the unknowns and not, I'm getting emotional just talking about it.
No kidding.
And it just really hits home that, that's why we have to do it for these folks too, you know? And like I said, Pauline Cushman is not a Belle, you hear about Belle Boyd or you hear about Clara Barton a lot. I wanted to tell her story because it needs to be told. And she was an amazing woman, well ahead of her time. She didn't go to tea parties. She was playing cards, drinking whiskey with the boys, which is something I like to do. And, it's just, she was a strong woman. And me, I've taken so much from that into my own personal life too. Like I said, from leaving an abusive marriage to, moving into a new chapter, and then just kind of I was drawn to this for a reason. And
Right.
I want to give back. And that's why I do it. I don't make any money off of this. If people think I make a lot of money, no, I don't. I held a full-time job. I work 40 hours a week in the medical field. This is not my job. I do this, many times. And like you said, researching and reading this stuff is heavy stuff at times. There's times where I have to stop researching because of just, if you're researching several nights in a row or whatever, it's just, I just have to go and do something else. It affects you that way.
Right.
That's how much the passion that we have for it is, and why it's so important that we do continue it, that we do introduce it to a new generation of people, to get it out there, to continue it, because, I want to see these stories told well after I'm gone. So
Likewise.
And I think that we're all coming together doing a good job to do that. And for the detractors and those few jerks, to hell with them.
They're few and far between. We have,
Yes.
I think there's a larger support base than there is the detractors and the discrepancy people that just want to throw their negative comments and their negative influence in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In anything, really. People are going to be negative about anything. So
They are. You got a few bad seeds around there, but like I said, the overwhelming positivity I see completely almost disregards that negativity that's thrown at us on occasion. Yeah. Well, guys, any last minute thoughts before we wrap up?
Tyler, real quick.
You better not talk about Barlow.
I'm not. I saw Andrea's comment saying, "Message me, Andrea." I already sent it. Message already sent. So
there's going to be a lot of
watch it.
Barlow stuff. Anthony, you better not set the bar low.
Goodbye.
Well, on that note, but I want to thank you for having me on here just to talk history, to tell Cushman's story.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm blessed for the opportunities that I have. I'm blessed for the people that I know and support me. And I do greatly appreciate it. And like I said, we're all doing it for the history. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And MJ, you're welcome back anytime. If you want to pop in for an Unfiltered Conversations,
I would definitely be up for that.
If you want to throw some tea in the harbor with me and give Darren a little
I do want to get down to Fredericksburg. I have not been there yet. And there's many battlefields I haven't been to yet or want to go back to. So Manassas is one I'd like to go back to. And but thank you so much for having me on. And I do appreciate this for me to tell my story. You are very kind, much kinder to me than Braxton Bragg and Nathan Bedford Forrest were, y'all. So, and again, thank you for all the great comments tonight, guys. I really, to the folks that tuned in, you guys are awesome. You help make us want to do this.
Absolutely. I'm about to say this is the reason we do it, is because this conversation is so engaging and you guys are absolutely a part of the conversation. Because again, some of these podcasts make it just feel like you're listening to it. We want you guys to participate. We want you to be a part of this conversation as well.
It's our history.
It's in the word.
It's all of ours.
That's right. We do this because we want to talk to you guys too. And F-bombs are welcome here too. I forgot to mention. That's why we're the Unfiltered. You say what you want. That's what we're here to do.
I don't know if y'all know this, but Golda Winnie Boy, he might have dropped one or two during his life.
Hey, Lisa.
Lisa's on. Oh, Lisa. Yes. Lisa's awesome peoples. Yeah. Thank you for joining too, Lisa. And again, Civil War Breakfast Club, this community is so important, and it is. And we got to keep that alive and show everybody that we're not the gatekeepers. There is a large group of supportive folks here that will continue to listen to your conversations, engage with you, and help you share the stories of the people we try to keep alive, because we do keep their spirit alive.
If anybody ever has any questions or anything like that for me on Cushman or anything, then, I can be found on Facebook or message Ty or whatever. And,
absolutely,
he can get me it's all about, and if I don't know the answer, I will get it for you. I don't claim to know every single thing. I'm not like that.
We're all
There's much
still
more
learning.
probably to learn. But if I don't know it, then I will get you the answer. But yeah, so if anybody ever has any questions, or they have questions on, anything else, whiskey, Maker's Mark or whatever,
1776, best stuff in the world.
I think you should.
Dr.
I think
Pepper?
you should drink Old Crow. I think
No.
you should do a James Longstreet Old Crow.
All right, I tell you what, Anthony, when we do our James Longstreet episode,
Oh,
I
y'all
will,
better be ready
I
to go
will
to urgent
film
care.
the next episode you should have
What's
is
that?
with Lisa talking about some great stuff about the Booth family.
And I'm a descendant of Dr. Mudd, so that would be a very fun conversation.
You want to know what's funny? I actually was friends with John Wilkes Booth. Him and I acted, and I hung out with him. And I had nothing to do with none of what he was up to, y'all. So I just want y'all to say that, all right? I had nothing to do with what happened to President Lincoln. Okay, so don't be trying to bring me up on no conspiracy charge, okay?
Actually may have a part in the Lincoln thing. I'm a direct Mudd descendant, and I do have the Mudd family.
Did your arm just break?
It did. It hurt really bad. It's a tome, man. It is literally a list of all the names and how we're related to Samuel Mudd. I'm not going to say he was innocent or he was good.
Well, I'll tell you this: when my dad and I were in Springfield in 2019, and we went to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library Museum there, and we go in, and we're the first people through the door because they got to make sure you get there at 9 a.m. or whatever the time it is. And we go to the ticket counter, and my dad makes small talk with the lady, and she goes, "Oh, my last name is Mudd." And I'm just thinking, wow, we're coming full circle. The descendant is working at the President's Museum.
My roommate is a relative of the Garrett family as well. So
really? So
yeah, we have a spicy kind of a thing going on here.
That.
So we don't talk about Lincoln all that much in the house because we're like.
But see, this is what is so cool to me too. You meet people in the Civil War community. Now you're a descendant of Mudd, okay? And I portray Pauline Cushman, who was friends with Booth. So, it's like you find out all these interesting things about people. I ain't afraid of you. I threatened to shoot Forrest, so don't you be even thinking about doing nothing with me, okay? Just let him know. I'll shot him right in the face.
I don't follow in Dr. Mudd's footsteps. I promise you that much. I'm tame. I'm an angel, actually. I don't do anything.
It'd be pretty hard to walk in his footsteps because it'd be so muddy.
All right, Anthony, will you close us out with your battery jokes? I don't think MJ's heard your battery joke. This is going to be our
I'll give this bad joke.
Go ahead, Anthony.
So in an Civil War Army's camp, it's nighttime, and you reach the cavalry area, and the fires are dull. And you reach the infantry camp, and their fires are dull. But then you go to the artillery camp, and before you even reach there, you're already getting blinded by how bright the fires are. Because you have finally found the batteries. Thank you all, everybody.
Everybody tuning in tonight.
And
thank
you
guys.
I'm not even dealing with this.
We'll see you next time.
I'm going to chug it. Y'all have a great one. We'll see you on the next one.